It's bacon time, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of Dads with Bacon Talking Sports. I'm your host, Aaron Ludwig, and with me today I have some of the usual faces. We'll be talking about, obviously, the Damar Hamlin tragedy, I guess you could say. I don't know what the right words are because obviously he's still with us and sounds like he's making progress, which is great news. But we'll talk about that obviously and touch on that. But I don't want to talk about the whole show because I don't know if there's a whole lot more any of us can say that hasn't already been said. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about this past week's games, and we'll talk about this coming week's games because they're gonna have them like usual. So I know there was talk about them canceling for a week. We'll actually talk about that too. I'll ask them the guys briefly what they think, and yeah. Oh, and then we'll talk about obviously the college football semifinals and the finals coming up this Monday night. So, without further ado, bring on Brad first. How you doing, Brad?
Hey, how you doing, Aaron?
Good, good. So what did you? Well, we'll real quick. What did you think about this past week's games?
I thought they were pretty good. The college football playoff was amazing, man. Those two
Yeah.
games were electric from the start. A lot of turnovers, offensive battles. Um, typically you don't see too much defense in these playoff games after having a month off. So it was high scoring, pretty electric. A lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, honestly, I will say I'm one of the fans of the expanding to 12 teams just because I've felt the last few years just haven't been that competitive. It's kind of been a few different blowouts and, not really that big of a deal. So I thought it would be great for the 12 teams. But then you have these two games and you're like, okay, they did a good job picking these. I mean, great games and obviously the TCU upset over Michigan and the almost Ohio State upset. But I think we'll have a great championship. So I'll bring in Troy. How are
I,
you, man?
I am doing okay. Just I've done it before, but just throw out my thoughts and prayers to Damar Hamlin and his family. Um, yeah, that was a tragedy. I know we're going to get into that a little bit later, but I just wanted to start off with that. As far as last week's games go, yeah, I mean, Michigan, they kind of, I don't know what they seem like they got too cute at the beginning of that game, and I don't know why. I think they were the better team. I think they could have ran it right down their throat if they wanted to, but for some reason they were trying to run all kinds of gadget plays and stuff. It didn't make any sense. Um,
Fourth
but
and one, fourth and goal at the
yeah,
1 yard line.
and you're
Double
running the Philly
reverse.
special. Yeah, I mean, what are you doing? I mean, you have the best running game in the country. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep, exactly.
um, so anyway, and then I mean, Ohio State. I mean, they gave Georgia a run. I kind of expected that. I thought it would come down to the end. I didn't expect the Ohio State kicker to miss by a mile.
Yeah, I thought.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I thought he'd at least make it close, but
that was bad.
you know,
As far as the NFL goes, I mean, your Packers, I mean, everything's falling their way, isn't it, man? My gosh,
yeah,
everything that needed to happen has happened for them. I mean,
yeah,
that
yeah,
Minnesota horseshoe might have finally fell out of their rear ends and fell into Green Bay's. I don't know.
yeah. That could hopefully it goes over. It's funny because a lot of the people on the local radio shows, I shouldn't say a lot, a few of them though, are saying, "Oh, this week is going to be. Oh, I have no doubt." And you know what? I think the Lions might be tougher than the Vikings. I mean, they're on a roll too. They've won 7 of 9. Um, the only
I think the NFL did a poor job with that though. With
Yeah,
like,
man. If
I
I
don't know
if I
why
were
they
the
put I don't know why they put that as the last game of the year. Because if Seattle wins,
dude, if
uh,
I were the Seahawks, I'd be so mad.
yeah,
yeah,
like
Understanding that like they got to play first, and then if they win, Detroit's out, which means that they don't have a chance. And
yeah, they
they,
totally
yeah.
missed
yeah,
something there.
they
They should have
did.
had those games at the same time. There's no
Yeah,
doubt. Like,
100%.
Well, honestly, and that's what I thought they would do. I thought they would put both at 325, and
yeah,
because it just made more sense. But I mean,
I
Yeah,
mean, the
we'll
only
talk about that more for like week 7. Yeah,
yeah,
week
yeah,
18.
for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, let's bring in Coach Martinez. Some of you might remember him from the first episode. Um, Coach. Let's see. Let's bring him on. He's on the road. So how are you doing,
Yeah.
Coach?
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me back on. Yeah, traveling to Dallas right now to catch a flight to Miami in the morning. So thanks for putting up with the maybe bad audio, but I have a face for radio anyway, so that's okay.
Well, hey, tell us a little bit, because you have not been on since you started at Next Level Athletes. Is that?
Yes.
Tell us a
Yes,
little
sir.
bit about that. What do you guys do there?
Yeah, so basically we started a company, or our owner started a company August of 2021, where it's athlete representation. So helping guys out of college find basically homes in the pro world beyond the NFL. You know, everyone knows about the USFL and XFL. It's about to come along, but there's a lot of other opportunities across the United States. With arena leagues, there's a lot of opportunities now with international ball down to Mexico and Brazil, Europe, Japan, Australia. So there's a lot of places where these guys can still go, get paid, continue to play, continue to develop, and kind of make their way stepping stones towards their ultimate goal of playing on Sundays. So we did that. I've been with them since they kicked that off, just as a thing during the off season, kind of to keep me in the football world. And then here recently, the owner, his name was Buddy Walters. He asked, since we've been doing really well, we've had a lot of guys go USFL, some guys CFL. He wanted to go ahead and kind of create a separate sister branch called Next Level. Next Level is going to focus more on those guys that need a little bit more work, not quite at the USFL, XFL level, but still can make some of these other leagues and still take some of those smaller steps first. So it's a good time, man. We were helping a lot of guys out. I think right now, last I checked, we have like 177 athletes on our rosters, and a lot of those guys are getting signed all over the place. So we're really we've come a long way since we started.
Awesome. Okay, so let's get into the right into the Damar Hamlin. Again, I don't know what to call it exactly.
Incident.
I guess that's what I was originally thinking. It's like incident, again, tragedy, but usually we use that word for when people pass away and that kind of thing. Again, just reiterating what you said, Troy. Thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family. And it's it's positive. It sounds like there's some progress being made, so that's great news. So I want to talk about, first of all, a poll that we put up at on the Dads with Bacon group on Facebook, and I asked the question yesterday: if you were on either one of these teams, and say the NFL, because obviously there were rumors coming out that originally Roger Goodell and the league wanted them just to take a break and then come back out and play and warm up. And then, I'm sure everyone that's watching this has heard, this story that coaches both got together and said, forget it. We can't go back out here.
So what happened, I don't know if you heard the Zach Taylor press conference today, when they were kind of after the ambulance left the field. He obviously, Coach Taylor saw the look on the Bills' faces and all that kind of stuff. So he walked over to Coach McDermott, and the first thing Coach McDermott said to him is like, I got to be at the hospital with my player. I can't be here. And that's kind of when they said, well, that's when they took everybody off the field, then that type of thing. And then they were just going to, chat about it. And I guess, I don't know if you kept watching the broadcast or not, but then they were back in the locker room and they kept having phone calls and stuff like that. So I think they might have been talking to whoever was in the front office at that time, for the NFL.
Yeah.
Am I getting feedback here or?
No,
okay.
You're good. You're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing it in my headset. That's why. But so anyway, I just wanted to clarify. And then and then in that press conference, the question was asked, did the NFL tell you, just give it 5 minutes or whatever, and then get back out in the field? And he did not answer that question.
Yeah.
So
No,
that
well,
leads me to believe,
I think, yeah, that probably, that sometimes that silence tells you everything you need to know. So, anyway, so I had asked the question if the NFL, and I think shortly after I posted that question is when they came out and said it won't be made up this week, which I think is a smart move.
Mhm.
But I did ask the question, if you played on either one of these teams, would you be able to go out and play after like 2 or 3 days of this? And we had 165 votes, 53% said no, which actually is the same thing I answered. So, Brad, why don't we start with you? Could you go out and play or not?
Man, that'd be tough. I I don't know if I could go out and make that game up in particular.
Yeah.
I think that game honestly should just be just a either declared a tie
Mhm.
or just not even affected into the standings. It's such an outlier of a situation, such a
Mhm.
random thing to where I think about it in all the millions and millions and millions of plays that has never happened. So
Yeah.
I think is it devastating? Yes. Is it serious? Yes. All of those things. It checks all those boxes.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that there you do have to take a breath and step back from the situation a little bit and say, are we, are the next steps we're going to take going to be actually be fruitful to the response of what actually happened?
Yeah.
So I think right now is when we have to be careful as to how we respond and what the next steps really are. I think
Sure.
that requires time and just a little bit of patience when a lot of people aren't really willing to demonstrate it.
Okay. Troy, what do you think?
Well, I two things. Well, maybe more, but Ryan Clark really had a nice
Hmm.
thing that he said after all this came out, and
Yeah.
he after all he had his speech, and I hope everybody had a chance to listen to that because it was really heartfelt, really meant a lot.
Yep.
But then after that, he said the next snap of football is really going to have some people on the edge of their seats, and that's so true. I mean,
Yeah.
that next snap is going to be like everybody's just going to be waiting for something bad to happen now. And eventually they'll get by this and things will basically be back to normal until, hopefully not, but until another tragedy like this happens,
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it too depends on whether or not Damar, fully recovers,
that was going to be
that's
my
going to
second
be,
point.
yeah, and that's going to be. I mean, that may be months or
Yeah.
whatever, but
So I
um,
think if you would have found out, that night, maybe even the next day or something like that, if you're hearing, hey, he's looking good, things are coming back, he's coming back to normal, all his vitals look good, he's breathing on his own, like what, all that kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah,
I think maybe you could start to work past it a little bit,
yeah.
but not that quick.
Hmm.
The other point I was going to make, another analyst was Shady McCoy was on Fox Sports, and he said one of the things that they want you to go out there, play loose, play free, play fast, play your best, because that's when you're playing. Not only are you playing your best, but that's when less injuries happen, right? When
Sure.
you're playing cautious and you're looking out for things and you're worried about things, that's when the injuries happen.
Yeah.
And you don't want these guys to be out there playing cautious like that. So it kind of, I think they really need to have and I'm sure they have already, but they really need to have a deep talk to their locker room and make sure that these guys aren't going to be holding back when they're ready to go back out there, because it's only going to hurt possibly themselves, in this, and have more injuries out of this thing. So
Sure.
I don't know. I think a lot of people that answered yes to that, I don't know that they've ever really been part of a team, and maybe they have, but
Hmm.
I'm interested to hear what coach says. Actually, if you want to go to him, I'm
Yeah.
interested to hear what he says, because to me, I don't think you could. I really don't.
Yeah. Coach, you want to come
Yeah,
on
I
and
mean,
give your opinion. Now, just so I know, can you hear us when you're on mute?
yeah, I hear you guys
Okay.
just fine.
Okay. All right. Perfect. So, yeah, what are your thoughts? Like I said, 53% said no, they could not go back this week. As a coach, would you? I mean, well, I'll just say this personally. As a player, would you be able to go back? And as a coach, how would you feel?
I mean, as far as like I said, I think they did the right thing within the game. There's no way to restart the game. It just couldn't be. The long lasting effects of the traumatic experience those guys had to go through, seeing him get worked on the field for that long, that's life lasting. I I mean, they're never gonna forget that as long as they live. That's gonna be a permanent thing in their minds as they keep going forward. So as far as the game goes, totally agree. Shut it down. There's no coming back from that. Everything else, you do have to collect yourself, and you know, as bad as it is, and as bad as the incident was, he is still alive. Prayers and everything that he continues to make strides health wise. But it is at the end of the day, the NFL is one of the largest operating businesses in the world. So it's back to work. It's clocking back in, and the game of football is organized violence, and that's what it is at its core. It's organized violence, and these guys know what they're signing up for. The NFL at least had procedures in place that they did go on record saying that did utilized correctly. They had an airway specialist there ready, to make sure that he was breathing and making sure that things were stable at least while he was getting worked on. Those emergency protocols that are in place for every game, whether it be NFL, college. There's a separate entity that special ops that they deal with that specifically. All the medical stuff, and it's a good sign to see that it worked, and they were able to at least help him get into a hospital and receive that urgent care that he needed. But like you said, Roger Goodell, if it were up to him, would he have continued playing that night? Probably so. I mean, in his mind, he probably sees money first over the well-being of some of those players, and that's why a lot of these guys they ultimately have a jaded perspective of the league, because it's a meat market sometimes, and once you're injured, you're not as valuable to anyone, including your team or the league as a whole. But
if you would get injured anywhere, on game day at an NFL stadium, it's not a bad place to get injured, because you're going to be treated pretty darn well.
Absolutely, and it's a bad deal. It's the first of its kind on a national stage like that. But I mean, there are other instances in high school football and things of that nature, and training camps and 2 days across the nation where cardiac events have happened. It's what the game is. There's always that possibility. So at the end of the day, you just hope for the best for that young man, and for everyone else, those other teams that are still going and playing this weekend. It's just you do your best to go out there and continue to play.
Yeah, and to think that with all the heat that Higgins was getting, and I'm glad the family did say something, because again, it's not his fault. That theoretically, and this is me not trying to dismiss any part of his impact in the entire situation, maybe the hit didn't even have anything to do with his cardiac arrest.
Mm-hmm.
That's a truly a distinct possibility.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, nothing has come out officially about how it happened. It's all been speculation by different doctors saying, well, this is what, this happens. I think the number is like 10 or 12 people die every year from this kind of thing, where the blunt trauma to their chest.
Yep.
I've even heard like baseball and softball, I mean, you can take a line drive off the chest, I
think that's the highest injury of where that actually usually happens, is usually softball. Yeah,
exactly. So so we don't even know for sure. I mean, this might have been something that maybe he had, and again, I'm speculating too, but maybe he had some kind of heart condition that he didn't know about. The first one I thought about when this happened was Hank Gathers. And I don't know, I mean, you guys I think are all old enough to remember him. And he dunked a basketball and ran back in half court. He just collapsed and died right there, so we don't know. This guy, it could have happened to Damar playing pickup basketball during the week or jogging. I mean, who knows? So it'll be interesting to find out, if the doctors can even figure it out and come out and say something so the speculation's done. Coach, I want to go back to you, because I thought of this question just now, as we're talking. Do you think that, you know, working with players like you do, the next time our defensive player is going to think differently the next time they're trying to tackle a guy and he lowers his helmet. Is this going to be in their head, do you think, or maybe something that'll be in their head for a while, and again they'll just kind of get over it with time? Or do you think this might, the next time a guy, you know, maybe I don't want to make that tackle or whatever?
Right. I mean, it's so fresh right now. There's no way it's not on anyone's mind. You know, these guys, you can have the best pep talk from your coaches and have the best. Most of these clubs have, you know, certified sports psychologists on staff that they can go and try to do, you know, mental exercises with these guys and some, you know, trauma counseling and stuff like that to help work them through it. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you're going out there and, you know, pre-game, you're kind of just taking things a little bit slower, you know, kickoff. You know, usually once you kind of get that first kickoff going, that first hit happens, you're kind of like, okay, like we're back into it. And eventually it does get back to the point where it's just football, and it's the same game they've been playing since they're probably 4 years old. But it's going to take some time.
Sure. Now,
I think that's the main thing. What he touched on there too was about the trauma counseling, like the mental health. I think really needs to be taken seriously in this whole matter, because he even said too, like even as fans, not think about the guys on the field, but even as fans, if you were watching that, you're never going to forget that. You're never going to forget that.
Yeah.
And think about them. Like that's just going to be permanently implanted in their mind for the rest of their lives.
My cousin and one of his friends was actually at the stadium at that game. And he said, you know, again, he's, you know, I've asked him, it's like, hey, I mean, was it weird or anything like that? It's like, no, it was weird, but it was definitely just like you knew that he needed some help and things were going pretty badly. But
well, and again, you wonder for people, because, you know, and Brad, you and I kind of touched on this, you know, before the show started. You know, for people watching on TV, and when I saw the replay of it, I wasn't watching it live, but when I saw the replay of it, you look at it, you're like, okay, I didn't see really anything wrong with that hit. It wasn't, you know, a vicious hit,
happens
anything
60
like
times
that.
a game, right? Yeah,
exactly. And you know, we've all seen players where they get hit a certain way, they get up, they start walking, and all of a sudden they go down. You know, not the way he did,
right?
But you know, but they go back down to the ground, or maybe even they, you know, if it's a hit to the head, you know, we've seen it happen before where they go back down and then all of a sudden the medical team comes out. So you wonder too, for those people that were watching it live at the stadium, did they even realize until all the players came out, all the players made a circle around, and then I'm sure word started spreading throughout the stadium that, hey, they're doing CPR on the guy, you know, all that kind of stuff.
A lot of guys that go, they'll, especially if they're up in the nosebleeds, they'll take binoculars and stuff like that. And I'm sure the word was getting around from guys like that, you know.
Yeah. I mean, but it definitely had to be surreal being in that stadium, because I know it was just watching the replay of it. It was just like, man, that's just crazy, you know.
Yeah. I mean, and I was even listening. You know, I listened to a bunch of Bill's podcasts, obviously, and one guy, he's a beat reporter for them, and he was there. And when the injury happened, or I shouldn't even call it an injury, I mean, because it really wasn't.
Yeah.
But when the incident happened, the one guy said, I think that's Damar Hamlin. He said, no, I seen him get up. And then he, sure enough, he got his binoculars out and looked, and then they could see it was him. So, yeah, a lot of people saw him got up, and then they didn't really think anything of it. And just within moments, he fell backwards. And you knew the way he fell. At first, everybody probably thought it was, you know, a head injury type of thing, right? That's probably what everybody thought at first.
Exactly, yeah.
But you could tell pretty quickly by the looks on the guys' faces and the tears rolling down their face that that's not what it was.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so another question I want to touch on, and I mean, we talked about a little bit already, but 2013, and again, I'll go to Coach first because I want his opinion on this, since he works with football players every day. In 2013 is when the NFL, I think, really started to take heat for the whole, you know, concussions and head injuries, and so they passed that helmet rule where they said, okay, no one's allowed to lower their helmet, whether it's defense or offense. You can't lower your helmet. And at first, there were offensive players getting called for that, and then they just kind of stopped. do you think, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm blaming T. Higgins for it because it was a completely legal play, seen it plenty of times. Do you think that's something they have to readdress and finally say, you know what, we need to start enforcing it on both sides of the ball? Or do you think that just that's part of football, you know?
Yeah, it's a hard rule to go by because as a judgment call for a ref,
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier to look at the defense because they're the ones initiating contact
Mm-hmm.
most of the time for a tackle. In this instance, this guy is initiating contact because he's trying to pick up a few extra yards.
Yeah.
Lower your shoulder. You're taught to lower your shoulder, get low, press through, and try to make something happen.
Oh.
And like spearing, use the crown of your helmet to try and do the same thing, but ultimately unsafely. So, it's just one of those things where, it's designed to be a precaution to help, all major injuries like that and like this and head injuries and like that, lessen. But, how do you teach even a long tenured ref that's been doing it for 20 plus years to make that judgment call? It's a split hair decision. It's a decision that it's going to ultimately cost the game time for the penalty. And are you going to review it? Are you going to call it in a critical situation where there's a score that just happened or a big play? It's tough. They're put in a really between a rock and a hard place when it comes to that rule.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Troy, Brad, you guys, what are your thoughts on that whole thing?
I don't know, because like you said, when they first initiated the rule, like it did seem like they called it occasionally, but it was almost always on the defender.
Yeah.
I mean, back in that time frame, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that's when Marshawn was kind of on his hot streak, and that dude was doing it every play. I mean,
yeah.
So and he never got called for. So I mean, I don't know how. I mean, it's a dangerous play for many reasons. Like, first of all, the guy that's lowering his helmet, I mean, that's the worst possible way to get your neck compressed and get, paralyzed. So
yeah,
I think if it's something obvious that you can see without it looking like it's too much of a judgment call, then pull the trigger. But I don't know. It is touchy. It's a touchy subject. I mean, that's the way guys have played forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recall a lot of really hard nosed, head in your face, other than maybe like Marshawn lately. I mean, I think a lot of running backs have been coached and taught differently rather than to go in with your head and again risk injury. That if you run properly with your body at a lower center of gravity and you do get your shoulder lowered instead of your head, that it does make a difference. And so I think that's why you don't see a lot of running backs doing so much of the headbutting anymore, because in addition to with the concussion protocol in the NFL, that if you continue taking blows to the head, you are going to get concussed at some point, which means you're going to be out of games.
Sure.
So, I mean, I don't think it's
unless
really...
you play for the Dolphins.
Oh, well played. Okay, yeah, and I want to, and again, for those of you watching on Facebook, I don't know if you guys see the comments. There's a couple of good comments here. So one of the last comments talked about the league needs to look at maybe better padding for the sternum and the chest, because there really isn't a whole lot. I mean, it's certainly not a bad idea. And a couple of another guy, I'm not sure if it's the same one or not. Again, I can't see their names. Talked about it in high school.
Yeah,
TJ.
Okay. All right. And yeah, in high school, I played a game where an opposing player was paralyzed, cut the game short. It really messed with our minds. So yeah, it's not just the players on that team that it messes with. I mean, it's everyone. And then, another comment was a lot of parents of kids are pulling their kids out of it. And, I mean, I can't necessarily blame them for that. I mean, you, as a football fan, you don't like to see it happen because, obviously it's going to hurt, the amount of players that are involved, as the years go down the line. But I don't blame them. for
Yeah,
that.
I'm sitting there with a bunch of friends. We were watching the game, and obviously as the night was going on, and we were talking, and that was one of the things I said too. It's like, if this doesn't decrease youth football rates, I don't know what will. Like,
yeah,
I mean, no parent wants to see their kid have to go through something like that.
To end on a
Sure.
positive note, though, I think to see that in spite of him going through that incident on the field and being in the hospital now, to see like
The unity.
the unity and the love and the support that people are giving, not only to him and his family, but to his like GoFundMe foundation.
Charity, yeah.
I mean, right before we got on, $6.875 million.
That's insane. That's more than his contract. You know that?
And he was looking for 2,500. It's like, wow, it's. I mean, that's very cool. So
a lot of the big donors like Jim Irsay and Sheets
Robert
Laundry
Kraft.
Club and the Patriots, they put like 25K 003.
Yep.
003.
Yeah.
It's just really neat to see. And again, a lot of Bill's Mafia in on that. So that's
just
it's amazing. It's
to
really
touch
cool to
on
see.
that. Yeah, I mean, it is cool to touch on that though too. Talking about celebrities and things. If you guys are wrestling fans, I'm not really into wrestling, but Chris Jericho apparently
I
gave.
heard that.
Did you hear that? Yeah, he gave $10,000 total, but the first time
he spelled his name wrong.
Yeah, he spelled his name wrong and spelled it, I think, crust, like CHRUS or something, and he had given $5,000. And so I think he was just embarrassed that, hey, people might not know who I am. So he gave another $5,000 and made sure he spelled his name right. So that was kind of funny. So okay, let's. I told you guys I was going to mention Skip Bayless. We're not even going to waste our time on that. It's
in all honesty, like
we can touch on it real quick because I don't think it'll take long.
Yeah, I don't think it will either.
No.
I think a lot of people like kind of misinterpreted the actual wordage of the tweet.
He worded it awfully terribly.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was terrible, but
it was the time. It was the timing, though, too. I think was part of the problem.
I think that's more of the just like, are you real? Are you for real, dude? Like right now, that's the question.
You couldn't wait at least till tomorrow.
Like, exactly. It's
you
like
go to Ed Hockley. It's like, is it too soon yet? Nope.
Yeah.
The meme's good.
Yeah.
Well, with those 24-inch pythons hanging out.
Yeah, someone talked about like he needs to be able to
no common sense.
Yeah, learn how to read the room, that kind of thing. And another person I saw comment today, just on another Facebook thread, made the comment. I thought it made a lot of sense. It wasn't necessarily even about that comment, but the guy has had a history of just throwing crap out there just to like cause a stir. And I think people just, it's one of those things where after a while, your reputation kind of, you don't have to necessarily say
you wear
anything.
Out your welcome.
Yeah. You don't necessarily have to say anything amazingly egregious. And then the way he, and I normally don't watch Undisputed. I don't, like I said, I don't like Skip Bayless anyway, but I heard a lot of people talking about the confrontation. I was like, well, now I got to check it out, because that's always interesting. And I thought the disrespect he showed Shannon Sharp, and I'm not a huge Shannon Sharp fan either, but let the guy say his piece before you interrupt him. And Skip was just kind of a dick to him, and I'm like, come on, man, this is a former player. I like to hear what the former players have to say about this stuff because even if they're not playing anymore, it's still kind of like a brotherhood, so it's like,
Well,
I mean, I loved what Ryan Clark
done.
Yeah.
We don't know because we've never done.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and Shannon made a good comment too before he was interrupted, about, I mean, being a Packer fan, Sterling Sharp was one of the best players that we've had. And, and he had a neck injury and that's what ended his career. And I honestly, I think he'd be in the Hall of Fame already if he had played. I think he only played like 7 years before he got injured, but his numbers,
that long? I didn't think it was that long.
Yeah. But his numbers were, I mean,
insane.
pretty damn impressive. And it was like, if he had played 10 years, like a lot of these guys are able to, his numbers would be, through the roof. I mean, maybe not necessarily Jerry Rice numbers, but it
just was terrible. There's a comment here, and I think it's TJ again. It's just that the wording and timing of that was the worst. He lost a lot of respect. And that's exactly what it boils down to. He didn't word that properly. He didn't take the proper time to wait till he tweeted something like that. I mean, heck, the guy was probably still laying on the field when he tweeted that. Like, I mean, I mean, it was really poor timing. And
at least he wasn't doing snow angels.
Yeah, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
phew. And then putting him to sleep on the sideline. My gosh.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
He was
that was
way
bad too.
yeah.
I mean, if he doesn't get fined, I'll be surprised. But
Yeah. Coach, do you want to add anything to that about Skip Bayless, or are we gonna? You want to just go on to the next week?
Yeah, I mean, not much to say there. He's a
Yeah.
character. You know, he's made a living off of being that way for, I mean, decades. You know, he was a beat writer in the Dallas Fort Worth area before he got big on ESPN. You know, he was known for making splash comments like that.
Yeah.
Stuff that hurts people's heads, and you know, is usually kind of against the grain of what is conventional or sometimes PC, and then that's why people so use full point.
Oh,
yeah, we're losing
He's
him.
breaking up.
he's breaking up. Yeah.
We'll try to get back to him, CP.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. Actually, he brought that up, and I was kind of curious to hear if he said he was a beat writer down there. So I'm wondering if a lot of the players,
these guys, the media, that's how they make a living. Ultimately, if you were to talk to him as just a human being aside, cameras off and all that, I'm sure he would, show compassion and just be like that. But whenever you have an audience like he does and has a reputation to uphold, he's going to say something sideways like that. It is what it is.
Gabe,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Oh,
I don't know if he's there. Gabe, you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Did you remember him as a beat writer?
What's that?
Did you remember him being a beat writer? Were you down in that area when he was a beat writer?
It was whenever I was super young, but like a team that I used to coach for, our owners were from that area, and so he would. It's funny because it happened, but he would always tell me like, "I hate Skip Bayless. He was like a local guy, there, and he just would always do,
Well, that's what I was.
stuff."
That's what I was going to ask. Like, what the players thought of him. The players probably didn't like him, huh?
No, not at all. And most guys, they understand it. They the media in general, it's more of a force thing than anything else. They have an obligation through the organization to make appearances and answer questions and post game stuff like that, or else they get fined. Like the whole Marshawn thing. But
yeah,
what that voiced their opinion after he made his comments. We're not happy with it. But at the same time, I'm sure they with a grain of salt, they just think it's Skip being Skip.
I think every market has one. I mean, I think that's what it boils down to.
yeah.
Every market has a guy like that that's going to try to push buttons and say something stupid, and so.
Well, yeah, and I like I was mentioning before we went on the show, and I don't remember who I heard it from, but supposedly, when Skip was hired by Fox, the rumor was that Troy Aikman actually threatened to quit because Skip Bayless, back when Troy, I think, was still a player in Dallas, Skip Bayless had written a book about the Cowboys, and in it he implied that Troy Aikman was gay. And I mean, that was back in a time. Now it'd probably still be a big deal if you say something like that and you have no proof. But back then it was still like, hush hush, we don't really talk about that kind of stuff. So Troy Aikman hates Skip Bayless, and I don't blame him, but now he's not even there at Fox anymore.
Now he's ESPN, so he probably he probably couldn't wait to get out of there.
yeah, exactly. So all right, so week 17. Brad, any games that kind of stood out to you? I wrote a few of them down, but let me get any things that top of your head that stood out.
Well, I definitely think that that Vikings Packers game stood out to me in a few different ways. I think that if I think Green Bay has got to stick to the identity of offensively running the ball. Because if they go pass happy, that's when they Aaron Rodgers has been, honestly, I want to say, like a game manager this year. He hasn't made the mistakes. He hasn't. I don't even know if he's even thrown for 300 yards this year.
No, he hasn't. I think he has 3 games that he's thrown for over 250 or right around 250, and that's been it. So
yeah, he's been managing games, and their defense had a really good night, and their special teams too. I mean, their special teams running that kickoff right after the field goal. I mean, that was huge, and having that pick six within the same, like it was about a quarter and a half. So
well, that was the first time in 50.
I thought that was a big game.
Yeah, it's the first time in 50 years the Packers have done that in the same game. Had a pick six and or scored on defense and also scored on special teams. And I mean, you're talking about that's with Desmond Howard for a few years, with Reggie White and all those guys. So I mean, for them to never have done that, back in that era, I mean, Desmond had a number of returns that were for touchdowns, and yet the defense never scored. I mean, that was just an impressive number. But yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, they ran the ball like 33 times total and only passed like, I think it was 24 or like the mid 20s for pass attempts for Aaron. So yeah, and that's kind of been, as the Packer fan on the show, that's kind of been the knock against LaFleur and the staff all year, is that, it's pretty obvious in games that they do well, it's because they're running the ball, giving it to Aaron Jones, and now AJ Dillon is kind of picking up the pace, especially as games get colder and you get further into the winter. So hopefully they stick to that against the Lions, because I do think the Lion game, and we'll get to that a little bit later. I do think the Lions are going to be tougher than the Vikings, honestly. So, how about Troy? Any games that stuck out to you?
Couple.
Okay.
I did say that I thought the Browns would beat the Commanders pretty handily. They did. So I thought that was interesting. Is it time to give Mike Tomlin his flowers yet? I mean, this roster should have no more than 6 wins. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
And
agreed. Especially starting the season with Mitchell Trubisky.
I mean, it's insane what's happening here.
Coming from a Bears
they're
fan,
8-8. They need a win and a Patriots and Dolphins loss, and they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good for them or not, because they'll probably get blown away.
The Patriots are at Buffalo, as you know, and the Jets are at Miami.
Yep.
And I wouldn't bank on. I don't know. That's kind of a draw right
especially
now.
Especially if they're still going to have Skylar Thompson playing. Jared Studham, my gosh, that guy. Whew.
He played well.
Mentioned Derek Carr, and Studham comes in and plays a heck of a game. I mean, I'm thinking you're starting this guy against that Niners defense. I mean, that's hey, welcome to the NFL, dude.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. What about one of the comments was Saints beating
Eagles?
Being the Eagles. I mean,
I was surprised that the offense didn't do more than they did. It was really, really weird. I don't know. It was just they just couldn't get rolling, and it was just like, I don't know if the Saints just were really controlling the clock that well or what. And I mean, the Eagles basically had one big play, and that's really how they got their touchdown. That was it. I mean, AJ Brown 78-yard touchdown pass. That was, and I mean, it was really weird. Minshew didn't get going. He didn't play terrible, but it was a really weird game. So now they're gonna have to play their starter again to lock up the 1 seed.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and
not at full health.
Yeah, for sure. Now another game that stood out to me, and not that they won, but with the way they won, was the Lions and the Bears. I mean, 41-10, which is another reason why I'm not necessarily overconfident that the Packers are going to win on Sunday night. And another one, Jaguars. I mean, really took it. The Texans are one of those teams that obviously they're the worst in the league.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like a lot of the games they've actually kept close. I think even earlier in the year they played the Eagles. The Eagles were favored by like 12, and I think they only won by like a touchdown or 6 points or 5 points or something. It was a closer game. I just feel like the Texans are kind of scrappy. I mean, they still end up losing.
Yep.
Kind of like the opposite of the Vikings, where they find a way to win most games. Texans usually keep it close, but Jaguars beat them 31-3. Which sets up, this weekend's game, and we'll get Gabe's, opinion of this last weekend, and then we'll go on to the coming games. So, what did you think, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, this time of year is some of my favorite times, just because of all the drama. I live for it when it comes down to the last few weeks of the season, because the games that really, really matter. And all the storylines that play out, and if this, if this, and this, and this, equals that, we need this to lose. That's just good. That's just good sports to me. I love that part of it. Same way I love free agency and the draft. I like chaos. I love it. I mean, when it comes to, especially, when you start talking about benching starters and you got injured players here and there that probably could play, but they're going to save it for the playoffs, or they're playing a guy that hadn't played all year, like we talked about, Stidham. We saw him here in Texas for a long time. He's from our area. Knew that he could play ball, but it's a matter of if and when for him, and if he got the chance. And Scholar Tom, same thing with him. I mean, he was a Kansas State guy. We watched him for years play on Saturdays, and it's one of those things where I like seeing these guys go out there and kind of show their worth. This is to them. They're on the biggest stage, and they don't care who's hurt and who's not playing. They're getting a chance to go out there and maybe keep a job for next year, or audition for a different job somewhere else. So I just love it. I look forward to it. I like seeing everything unfold, and I like sitting back and just kind of see where all the pieces will fall for the long term.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it, and I feel like this is the first year. Now, I mean, we have a number of teams that have already been eliminated, but I feel like almost every season, usually the seeding is by the last week, the seeding is pretty much finalized. Where you have teams that are talking about maybe resting their guys because they have nothing more to play for, and I don't really think they, other than I think like the Giants have the 6th seed wrapped up, the Cowboys have the 5th seed, but
no, the
Not
Cowboys
necessarily.
Cowboys can still win the division.
Oh, that's right.
If they win and Philly loses.
That's right.
And
So
if the Niners lose, they actually get the 1 seed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
there's a lot of volatility in the NFC right now.
Yeah, but even the AFC. I mean, I think obviously if the
who
game
knows
Monday
what's going to
night,
happen there?
yeah, if the game Monday night had been able to be finished, who I can't remember the scenarios. Was it if Cincinnati won, they would have moved
Cincinnati won, they would
number 1 seed, or
if
what
Cincinnati
was it?
won, they would have locked up the division. But they would have needed a Kansas City loss and them to win the following week for the 1 seed. If Buffalo controlled their own destiny, so if Buffalo would have won and they would have won the following week, they'd be the 1 seed. But if Buffalo has 1 loss in there and KC wins, then KC has the 1 seed.
Sure. So but I guess the point is all 3 teams are still have something to play for. So you're not going to see Mahomes, taking a break. You're not going to see Burrow or Josh Allen or any of them. So yeah, I mean there's. And I mean in the NFC, you still got 3 teams trying to get in. I mean, and
can you explain that to me?
Yeah. So
how does Seattle have the tiebreak this week? But if they win next week and Green Bay wins next week, all of a sudden Green Bay has the tiebreak.
Yeah, and that is a little confusing to me. So I think, I mean, obviously, if 3 teams are tied, they automatically go to the conference record.
Oh, so 3 teams would be tied.
Well, right now 3 teams are tied because they're the Lions, Packers, and Seattle are all 8-8.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So but now if the Seahawks, now the only way the Lions can get in is if they beat the Packers and the Seahawks lose.
Correct.
But what's and I think we touched on it, so let's talk about it right now because I think we've kind of run through week 17. And we all talked about it before the show. I would agree with you, even as a Packers fan. It kind of benefits the Pack if for Seattle playing earlier, because if they win, then the Lions, other than knocking their nemesis out of the playoffs, they really don't have anything to play for, because even if they win, they're not going in there.
Right.
So even I, just as a football fan, for a competitive, to have everything equal.
Fairness.
Yeah, competitive fairness. I think they should have put both games at 325. That way you're all still playing for something. You're not looking over. I mean, they're probably watching the scoreboard. But
right.
But you still don't know, what's going on. Whereas, and I know Dan Campbell's a motivator, and he's gotten these guys to play the last. I mean, even last year when they won 2 or 3 games, they were still fighting every game. But you can't tell me that if Seattle wins, it's not going to be in the Lions' head a little bit. Some of the players, some of them may be able to get through it, but as a Lions fan, I think I'd be a little upset, if I were a Lions fan that they did it that way. So, what do you guys think about that, Brad?
Well, I think it's unfair to both Detroit and to Seattle. It's to be able to basically have to, normally playoff seeds, unless it's for like a division title, like for example, I think a perfect game for Sunday night game would have been Jacksonville, Tennessee.
Yep, agreed.
That for the division title right there, one of those two teams is going to the playoffs, period. End of story.
Well, that's the Saturday night game for some reason.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like the scheduling this week is so bad, and it doesn't make sense. But anyway, moving on to that though. That, I mean, really, that not only do you have the AFC South title game, you got the 7 seed in the AFC that's up for grabs between New England, Pittsburgh, Miami. All 3 of them got crazy games this week.
Even Jacksonville can sneak in there. Did you know that?
As a 7 seed?
Yeah, if everybody loses, if all them teams lose, Jacksonville actually gets a tiebreak and they're in.
Huh. Wow. So if Jacksonville loses and everybody else loses, they're still in.
Yep.
Wow, that's crazy.
Insane.
Yeah, they would get in at 8 and 9 as a 7 seed. Yep.
It wouldn't shock me considering what's happened in the NFC for the Packers. So it's everything's kind of worked out. It might be the Jags' year. Who knows? I mean, that things are just kind of falling right for them. Exactly. Well, so let's go to Coach. Touching on the whole issue of the scheduling for the NFC with the Seattle game. Lions and Packers. Do you think both should have been at the same time, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't understand how that didn't happen. They do a really good job of flexing games that need to be flexed for prime time, viewership, and right now with playoff seating and bids on the line, it seems like someone just dropped the ball there. I don't know what played into it. If there's maybe a storyline they're wanting to push that doesn't play into one of those games, get put into a slot where it should have been. I'm kind of a NFL conspiracy theorist sometimes when it comes to possible things not working for the greater good because they choose it not to be. But who knows? I don't know. I just for the dramatic aspect of it and sportsmanship and everything, you'd figure that they would have somehow made that happen, but it is what it is. That's how sports go sometimes with amateur athletics and stuff like that in AAA. Sometimes there's just games that get played first, and then the other one doesn't really matter. So it's still exciting times, and I try not to get hung up on those kind of flaws when it comes down to it. It's still really good football this late in the year. What should be a really good playoff run coming too.
So if Seattle loses, Aaron, that's a play-in game.
Yeah. So then whoever wins.
If Seattle loses, that's going to really get the conspiracies going, isn't it?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, not that they need any more fodder, for that, but
the way that Seattle's been kind of up and down lately, they haven't been as hot as they were earlier in the season. I could see. Is Baker still playing for the Rams?
They play the Rams. So I mean,
Akers has been running the ball well. I mean, I could see the Rams wanting to play spoiler and be like, "Screw you guys."
Yeah, well, and I mean Mayfield.
Their last hurrah.
Mayfield is playing for a starting job, I'm sure, next year against Stafford. I don't know if he has a chance, but I mean Stafford might retire too. Who knows? The one thing that was brought up this week, and I could see this. A lot of times the scheduling is all about obviously ratings. What's on TV. The Packers are a very good draw, and I feel like they've almost become a team that, for a long time, the Packers, a lot of people love the Packers because we're a small town and the history and all that kind of stuff. But they've been so good over the years that I feel like, and especially Aaron Rodgers is such a divisive guy. People love Brett Favre because he was the gun. Well, maybe not anymore after all this stuff with Mississippi. But as a player, people loved him because he was the gunslinger, and he'd talk about farting in the in the huddle.
Seemed like a big kid out there playing.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. He's the guy that he is. Honestly, he is Wisconsin. I mean that's the he was like that's why everyone loved him.
Do you guys have Salvation Armies there?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't. Oh, so you guys all robbed from them?
Ouch. Okay. So he's not Wisconsin now. He was Wisconsin back then. Like he was the guy that would go down to Milwaukee during the week. That was always one of the stories is that he'd go down to Milwaukee and he'd like guest, but he'd show up at a bar and they'd let him come back and bartend for a while or whatever. That
it's so weird because
Buffalo
and Green Bay markets are so similar. It's just Green Bay has a lot more history and championships than Buffalo does. But as far as the small town and everything like that, like these guys just walk around town and they're just like with everyday people all the time in that town, and it's like no big deal. It's like everybody will come up and say hi to them, whatever, but then they just move on. Like it's so crazy. Like but you go to those big cities and like you don't ever see the guys out and about in the big cities. They're you know what I mean? Like
that's absolutely, and that's why I think a lot of guys don't mind coming to Green Bay because frankly, there's not a lot of ways to get in trouble, especially if, like when Andre Rison came back in the 90s when they won the season they won the Super Bowl with Brett and all them, he came with a lot of baggage, and people in Green Bay were like, oh, we don't know if he's the Packer type, and we never had a problem with him. I mean, he wasn't a problem, but that's because there's not a lot of things to do in Green Bay. Let's be honest, that you can get into trouble. So
you hear the same thing from the Buffalo people. Same thing. There's nothing to do there. Everybody just hangs out. They go to each other's houses and hang out. And that's why you get, and that's why this Damar Hamlin thing is so big too, because they're like a big family. I mean, it's like that for every team, but I think it's even more distinct for a team like Buffalo and stuff because they literally always hang out with each other. Like it's, you know what I mean? So
for sure.
But,
for sure. Go ahead.
Can I comment on Week 18 real quick again, Rolla?
Yeah.
Where are you guys at in the draft order with the Bears there, Brad?
Number two.
So that's why you're starting Peterman this week.
Okay, so I honestly think yes. I think that's the majority of the reason. However, like watching the game last week, he was getting blasted by that Lions pass rush pretty good, and he had kind of tweaked his hip, and so in all honesty, I think it's if it were a game that mattered, he'd play.
Yeah.
But since it's not, like, nope, we're not. I mean, can you imagine him getting like an ACL injury and not being back to like next October?
And I wonder, like Minnesota, what they can move up to 2 if the Niners lose, but that's the best they can do. So I wonder how much they'll even play their guys.
Yeah, and that's that's where who's gonna suck less. I think you're right.
Yeah,
and I hope it's the Bears that suck more.
Well, I mean, at this point, you want to be 2 or 1. Of course, we want to be 1. We want
absolutely. I mean, and the great thing is the Texans play the Colts, who have been dismal. I mean, so bad. And honestly, Houston's actually been playing some of its best football.
It has,
with the exception of Jacksonville last week.
Yeah,
they've been hanging with teams. They beat who'd they beat? The Cowboys.
Yeah.
Who, Jacksonville or Houston?
Houston.
Oh
no, they gave Cowboys a run. They beat Tennessee.
Tennessee, that's right. That's right, Tennessee.
Yeah. So
okay, let's what? Oh, go ahead, Brad. Do you have?
No, I was just saying. I hope the I'm rooting for the Texans. Go Horns! whatever it is down there.
Okay, why don't we go to our picks for this week? I have 6 games 5 games we can talk about. So we'll start with Titans and Jaguars. Obviously, the winner of that wins the AFC. Is it the AFC South?
South.
I always get confused with that because I don't look at Tennessee necessarily as a Southern team, but I guess whatever. I also don't look at Indianapolis as a Southern team either.
Right.
So Troy, why don't we start with you?
Okay.
Titans, Jags. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm going to be surprised if anybody doesn't pick the Jags here. They're playing their best ball right now. Peterson has everything rolling. Lawrence seems confident. the Titans are starting a quarterback that they picked up off of the street 13 days ago or whatever. Like I mean, granted, Henry's back, and I think that's really the only chance the Titans have here is if they can ground and pound and just eat the clock and win a low-scoring game, like a 17-14 game or something like that. That's about the only chance the Titans have. But no, I think the Jaguars win, and I think they probably win by at least a touchdown.
Brad?
I concur. I mean, I think that Jacksonville offense, I mean, with the emergence of ETN coming out and actually being a very consistent threat in the backfield, I mean, he's really had a great sophomore year. And I think that it takes a lot of the load off of Lawrence to be able to, get in some good play action passes. I mean, that's a sneaky good offense. So I definitely go with the Jags to. I mean, I take them to cover.
Okay. What are they? What are they? What's the spread?
Let's see. And the current spread this week for
6.
6. Yeah,
And
they
they're
cover
in
that.
Jacksonville, aren't they?
Correct.
Yes,
Okay.
at home.
Okay. Yep. Okay, Coach, what do you think of that game? Titans Jaguars.
Yeah, 3 for 3 here for sure. Jaguars are playing great ball. I'm a big fan of Lawrence and ETN. This is the kind of production I was hoping to see from them as they transition into professional ranks. So, good offense there. Like you said, Derrick Henry's back, but I don't think they have the kind of passing game to get a compete when it comes to back and forth, trading blows. So, I think it'll be Jaguars by 2 scores at least.
Okay. So, Coach, why don't we stick with you? The next game, Patriots Bills.
Good game. That's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
It's always tough, interdivision type stuff. They're interdivision more so because it's just always competitive this time of year. I don't know. I guess, are the Bills playing for anything specific at this point, or are they pretty much just locked in?
I guess it depends on what they do with the Bengals game, honestly.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I think I'll still take the Bills. I mean, regardless, I think they're going to have high production. I don't know how much everyone's going to end up playing and all that good stuff, but I think their state of franchise is better right now than the Patriots is.
You do wonder if the NFL is hoping for like a Bills loss, so then maybe that Bills Bengals game doesn't matter and they could just call it a wash. I mean, that might be a conspiracy theory, but who knows? Troy, what do you think? Patriots Bills?
Yeah, no, that's a good thought, right? I mean, that probably is what they're hoping for.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would do if the Bengals would win, though. Well, no, the Bengals would still be a game behind the Bills, so then the Bengals would be the ones kind of getting robbed out of that, then, though, because they wouldn't have a chance to move up to the 2 seed. Yeah. So I don't know. Boy, I don't know. I think it really depends on how the rest of this week plays out with Hamlin.
I was going to say, as a Bills fan, do you think there's going to, is there?
I think if they hear good news and he's awake and they hear he's, up and about and kind of in good spirits and, not on a breathing machine anymore, I think at that point you're probably pretty motivated and want to go out there and play for your teammate.
Yeah.
But if he's still not doing so well, I don't know. I don't know that you can get focused for this game, and I wouldn't be surprised to see an upset. And to be honest with you, I don't think the Bills would really care if they got upset. To be honest, at that point, their mind is elsewhere at that point.
Sure.
So for sakes of being positive here, I think I'm going to say that with the way the signs are going here, and it looks like he's getting better, I think by the end of the week they're going to hear some good news here on Hamlin, and I don't think they're going to cover. I'm going to say like 23-20 Bills.
Okay, Brad, what do you think?
I definitely think there is a high possibility of an upset here, especially that New England's defense is tops in the league. I mean, they are, a defense that a lot of people don't look at just because of their record is 8-8 as being really, really, really good. What kind of a hangover do they have after that incident?
Yeah,
and I think the Bills find a way to squeak this out, but I don't think it's going to be a lot of points. I agree with your 23-20, but maybe I'll go a little higher, maybe like 28-21.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of just to touch on the Patriots a little bit. I was listening to one of the national networks over the weekend, and they were talking about the Patriots, and one of the guys they were talking about Belichick and the job he's been doing this year with them at 8-8, and I thought it was kind of funny because one of the guys said, I just don't think the Patriots are a very talented team, which points to the fact that Belichick could get them to 8 wins. That shows that he's a
okay, but it's also his fault that they're not talented, right?
Oh, exactly. That's what he said. He said, but he's also the GM, and that's a whole different discussion because he's the one getting the talent in there. So I had to laugh a little bit at that, the way the guy said it. But I guess I would say the one thing the Bills have going for them is the fact that the Patriots on offense just aren't that good, So, I think it is going to be a low scoring
unless Stevenson takes over. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, the next game, Ravens at Bengals. Again, this is one where, now correct me if I'm wrong. Can the Ravens still win the division?
It depends. It depends on what they do with that game because I looked it up. If they consider this game a tie or a no contest, the Ravens can't win the division. The Ravens needed the Bengals to lose that game Monday night to be able to win the division.
Gotcha.
So
okay, I can remember how that was.
I mean, it's really weird because these guys are going out here and playing, thinking they're going to know what scenarios they go into, but they really don't at this point. So
yeah, well, and I have to believe that if the Ravens win, the league has to figure out a way to make up that game. So do they push the playoffs all back and then just say there's no break, one week break between the conference? I mean, because they do have that 1 week cushion, and they've done it before where they've just played from the conference championship and then they just gone right to the Super Bowl. Which I'll be honest, I didn't mind when they did that. As a fan, I was just like, why do we have the 2 weeks other than, to get some of the special interest stories that fill a 5-hour pregame show for the Super Bowl? Like, really? What do you really get out of it? So, I mean, there is that possibility that you push it back.
Which should be on a Saturday night, by the way. That's a whole different story. The Super Bowl.
Watch it. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. So we don't have to take off of work the next day. That's for sure. Or make it a national holiday the next day. So
there you go.
I think there's been people that have joked about that.
But anyway, it's a whole different conversation.
Yeah. Okay, so Brad, let's start with you. Ravens, Bengals.
I think the Ravens are struggling so bad at quarterback. Honestly, I think the Bengals are just going to take care of them. If you really think about it, that in spite of being a part of that game and that situation with the Bills, that they played a half of a quarter of football last week. Yeah. That means that their bodies are in good shape. That means that they are, some dudes that may have been, a little questionable going into that game actually came out unscathed and still in good spirits, in good shape.
Yeah,
I think the Bengals are going to hand them. Their quarterback situation in Baltimore is just too gone without Lamar.
So is he definitely not playing this week? That's what I was going to ask.
From what I've seen, there hasn't been any reports at all about Lamar playing this week.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if that's the case, then I don't think it's going to be even close. The Baltimore has done absolutely nothing on offense since Lamar's been out of the lineup.
Yeah.
And I don't see a change in this week. Cincinnati's got a pretty good underrated defense, really. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised by a 27-10 score, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, Coach, what do you think? Ravens, Bengals?
Sorry, I was getting close to the exit here. No, you're good. I think, like you're saying, Bengals, I'm kind of digging what you're putting down as far as the whole conspiracy theory to make the game a wash. Let's go down that rabbit hole. I think that's going to happen, man. I think the Bengals will take it, and whatever needs to happen for that game to just quietly go away will probably happen.
Yeah. Okay, so let's Coach, we'll keep you right on here. Giants, next game I have is Giants-Eagles. Now, not a lot to play for the Giants because, like I said, I think they have the 6th seed wrapped up and they can't go any further. Obviously, the Eagles need that win, to wrap up the number 1 seed. So, I mean, they have more to play for, and I mean, honestly, I think they're a better team anyway. What are your thoughts?
I agree with you at that point, but the bad blood there in the division, the Giants do not like the Eagles and vice versa. So I think that's going to be kind of their little role of playing spoiler to try to do what they can to try to prevent that from happening. So they're not playing bad football. I think they're going to take it. It's going to be close. But with Minshew still playing, going in there, and he's not a bad quarterback. His first week in there, he played really well. But I think they're going to make things happen to where they're going to kind of squeak one out, do kind of play a role, and make some more interesting stuff happen with the seeding.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, Troy, what do you think?
Now I think the Giants are going to make it interesting, but I think in the end
Sure.
the Eagles will win this game. I just think I don't think the Giants are going to really play too many of their starters.
Yeah.
If any, maybe a half.
Is it confirmed Hurts is playing?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
I
it
had
seems
heard.
like
I
it.
had heard that he was going to play. I mean, he's not
Yeah.
100%, but I had that's what I had heard. I don't know if that's confirmed or not.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I'd go like if it was Minshew, I'm not sure I'd go with Philly.
Yeah, I think definitely as far as I'm seeing, Hurts is going to start. So if that's the case, then I'm definitely going to go with the Eagles here. But I do think the Giants are going to keep it interesting for a little bit. I think they're going to that division rivalry, the end of the year, and if you're looking at it from the Giants' viewpoint, you're looking ahead here and you're hoping you move on in the playoffs. And if you're the 6th seed, more than likely you're going to the 1 seed the next week. And where would you rather go, to Philly or to Dallas?
Yeah.
So. I guess in that case it could be San Francisco too. But either way, you'd still rather go to San Francisco too than to go into Philly. So
yeah.
Brad,
even though that's cross country,
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Brad, what are your thoughts?
On
Giants,
Eagles and Giants.
Eagles, Giants. It's if Hurts is playing from all signs point to that. I think the Eagles pull one off, maybe like 27-24.
Okay. All right. So last game we got, and then we'll talk real quick about the national championship game, Lions Packers, obviously. Brad, we'll start with you.
Should we preface that with the Seahawks game though?
Well, yeah. Okay. Let's say the Seahawks.
Can we put it all together? Or?
Yeah. Let's say the Seahawks win. What do you think, Brad?
If the Seahawks win,
yeah, because then the Lions can't go to the playoffs at all. So
honestly, I think if Seattle wins, that could be it's so tough just because I think Sunday nights in Lambeau in the winter is a really difficult place to play, which is another huge advantage that the NFL kind of screwed the pooch on. So I think that's still a little unfair to Detroit. And I think that with them being knocked out of the playoffs and then still having the national stage of, hey, we should be in the playoffs and go on. I mean, that could be a trap. I think it could be a trap game for Green Bay.
Okay.
If Seattle loses, I think that the momentum is really just in favor of Green Bay, and they'll just kind of come in with a swagger and take care of Detroit. I don't know. It's Detroit's so good right now, and honestly, I think they're playing better than Green Bay even during their win streak. And they still got Aaron Rodgers and that defense.
Well, and I think the key to that game, and we touched on it earlier about with the Vikings game last week, is the Packers need to run the ball more.
Yeah,
and it did help last week that they went up 14-3 quick because of their defense and special teams. So you didn't have to worry about running that. You could have a more balanced attack. The one thing that still annoys the heck out of me as a Packers fan is they have this tendency when it's 3rd and 3. Okay, we're gonna force the ball deep, and it's just like get 4 freaking yards and just keep the ball moving, But and I don't know if that's Aaron or if that's LaFleur or what, but I mean, I think the one thing that I like about this game is that again the Packers running game is clicking with the two with Jones and Dillon, and that seems to be at least, and maybe the Carolina game was an outlier. I don't know, but I mean, Carolina against the Lions a couple weeks ago had over 100 yards in the first quarter on the ground, So I feel like if the Lions have a weakness, especially on defense, it's the run game or it's defending against the run. So, and I could be wrong. I don't follow the Lions too much, but I do feel like the Packers running game is clicking, and I think I'll make my prediction on this one. I think the Packers win, but I think it'll be very close. Like again, like a 27-24, 27-23, something like that. So, Troy, what are your thoughts?
All right. Well, before I get to that, I just want to real quick kind of touch up the AFC, the end of that thing real quick. I think I already picked the Patriots to lose, so they're going to get knocked out. The Jets played the Dolphins earlier in the year and knocked out, and they played Skylar Thompson in that game as well, too. So I think the Jets are going to be ready for Skylar Thompson if he plays again. I think the Jets will win that game and upset Miami, and I think the Steelers are going to beat the Browns, and Steelers are going to sneak into that 7th spot. So
nice.
In the NFC,
yeah, I didn't even have that.
Here's the thing: if the Seahawks win, I think the Packers win. If the Seahawks lose, I think the Packers win. I just think all the momentum seems to be going their way right now. They're running the ball really well. And I think if Detroit has one little weakness, I kind of think that's what it is that run game on the offense, on the defense. I'm sorry. So I think Green Bay is going to really exploit that. The Sunday night in Green Bay, I think is going to be a huge benefit to them. And I almost feel like Detroit might be a little beat the moment they take the field. So I don't know. I don't know if it's even going to be close. I'm almost thinking like 30-10 or something.
Okay. But in all honesty, I hope not, though. I hope
I hope not either.
Game and the other, the side of me thinks that I think it'd be awesome to see Detroit in the playoffs. To be quite honest,
it would be cool because it doesn't happen often, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I will say this: if the Packers had continued their skid and been out of it, I'd be cheering for Detroit right now too, for sure. But because
you got a skin in this hunt.
Well, yeah, exactly. All right, Coach, what do you think of the Lions Packers?
Hey, go Pack, go! I'm a big Packers fan from going way back. Brett Favre's one. I saw his trading card inside of a video rental shop whenever I was like 7 years old, and I liked Brett Favre and the Packers up until the time he retired. They were my team because of him. So there's still a piece of my Texan heart that cheers for him, and I think there's some good storylines there. I think Dan Campbell's really a great motivator. I think he's got a good core of team there to build for the future if he gets a chance to. But I still think the Packers kind of have this weird destiny thing going on right now, similar to that way they won all those games on the road, years ago for that playoff run they made, or it was a championship, it was a Super Bowl run.
12 or 14.
It just kind of just feels like it's in the air. So yeah, for sure, I think they're going to take it.
Yeah, that was 2010 that they made that run.
Oh, 10. Wow.
They won like 6 in a row. Well, the Super Bowl was in 2011, but it was the 2010 season. So
I didn't realize it was that long ago. Wow.
Yeah, it was that long ago. Okay, so let's touch real quick because we're running over. But we can't leave this without talking a little bit about the national championship game on Monday night. We got TCU and Georgia. I would ask if TCU has a shot, and Coach, will go to you first. I would ask, does TCU have a shot? But I didn't think they had a shot against Michigan, to be honest, and they surprised me there. So what are your thoughts here against Georgia?
Well, my mind and everything, gut says Georgia's going to take it. They just have pretty much a superior team when compared to TCU, just on paper. I'm a huge Sonny Dykes fan, though. He's the first show we talked about Mike Leach. He's a Mike Leach protege.
Yep.
He got a start under Mike Leach. He's got a really good attack there. Their offensive coordinator was also from Texas Tech. He grew up in West Texas, where I'm from. They run that air raid. They do a really good job getting guys in space. They run a really interesting defense, trying to limit some of the speed that Georgia's going to bring. So I'm going on a limb. I don't know if the other two will probably pick Georgia hands down, but I think TCU's going to come out swinging. They're not just happy to be there. I think they want to show that they deserve to be. I'll say TCU in a shutout, like 41-38.
Okay.
Blowout.
Okay.
Shoot out.
Yeah, I hope, and you know what, Coach, we'll let you, since you're driving, we'll let you go. But definitely thanks for joining us, and safe travels and everything else.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on again. You two guys, my pleasure being on here with y'all. We have a good weekend, and we'll be talking again soon.
You too.
Absolutely.
Great time with Coach.
Take care.
Later, guys. Bye-bye.
Right, bye.
Later.
All right. So, yeah, and I will say this, and then I'll let you guys comment. I just hope it's a good game. Honestly, neither of these teams, some years there's a team in there that you hate. I mean, I'll be honest, when Ohio State's in there, I can't stand Ohio State. So, but I mean, neither of these teams really are, in my opinion. I suppose if you're an SEC fan, you hate Georgia, but me personally, it reminds me of last year's Super Bowl with Cincinnati and the Rams. Like I didn't really have skin in the game there with either one. I didn't hate. I mean, I'm not a fan of LA, but I didn't hate the Rams, and I kind of like Stafford, and thought he reminded me of like kind of a poor man's Brett Favre, the gunslinger kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, if it's a shootout, if Coach is right and it's 41-3, I mean, that'd be a great game. So yeah. Troy, what are your thoughts here?
Okay, so you prefaced all that with hoping it's a close game, right? I don't think it's going to be.
No.
I just think Georgia's talent level is just way too much, and I think Michigan just I don't know if Michigan overlooked TCU or what happened there, but they just did not play their game.
No.
For Michigan to allow, what was it, 50-some points or whatever to TCU, and with the number one defense in the country, like, come on, like, what you overlooked something obviously there,
But also with that good of a defense, I think that also shows as to how well TCU can respond with their offense. I mean, their offense is their bread and butter. That's a fair point. Just like Michigan is, their defense is their bread and butter, and it's to be able to. I mean, right when you get a touchdown thrown on or put on you on the first play, go for an 80-yard touchdown.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good point. Like, I mean, TCU definitely did their homework or whatever and figured out the weak spots of Michigan defense. But I mean, they also had a month to prepare for it too, right? So
true.
Yeah.
Now they only have a week. So let's see what happens here. But no, I just don't see it. I think TCU, they at least got some legitimacy by beating Michigan at least. But I don't think I think it's going to be, I don't know. I think it's going to be over by halftime, honestly. I think TCU might make some plays after halftime to make it look like it's close.
Yeah.
But I don't think it ever will be in doubt. I think it's going to be probably like 38-20, something like that.
Okay. Brad, what do you think?
I tend to agree, maybe not as early. That maybe they stick around at halftime, they're within a score. And, as the third quarter, early fourth quarter kind of comes on, they start kind of scoring another. I think final will end up being maybe maybe 42-28. I think it's, Georgia will get there. It's just so hard to stop that Georgia offense with, with all the talent they have between. All their skilled positions are just, great talent ready. It's an NFL freaking combine. That's what that program is right now.
Yeah.
Is just filthy with NFL talent.
For sure. All right, guys. Another great show. Thanks again, both of you, for joining me again.
It's a pleasure.
Again, just to reiterate, our thoughts and, you can't say it enough. Thoughts and prayers with Damar Hamlin and his family. Here's to maybe another couple days of progress before the weekend, and I guess that's kind of all.
I mean, that's all you can really say. I mean, you're just hoping for good news at this point. I mean, like you said, at the beginning of the show, signs are positive, going in a positive direction, and let's just hope they keep going that way. And it seems like we've been getting an update kind of every morning. So I'm hoping tomorrow morning we wake up and we hear, that maybe he's off the breathing machines now or something, So that's all we can do. Just hope and pray for him.
Great news if that happens. So, all right. Well, enjoy the football games this weekend. Enjoy the national championship, and we'll see you guys next week.
Sounds good.
All right. See you guys.
Take care.
See ya.
Yep.